Hello, my juicy peaches, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Priestess Peaches, aka Jackie Lane from yourpeachylife.com. I mostly support ambitious women in long-term relationships with love, pleasure, well-being, and business. And in this video, I'm going to be sharing some self-care and business tips for you if you are a sensitive female entrepreneur like me. So it's going to be a little bit different than your usual self-care tips. So I recommend grabbing a cup of tea and getting cozy, or maybe you want to listen to this whilst you are doing another task or on a walk or something like that, because it is going to probably be a little bit more of a longer form video, and I do like to ramble, you know me. I actually have my teddy bear hot water bottle here, and it's got a little pouch for your hands because it is freezing here in the UK, literally freezing. It's been snowing and everything. And I've got my Pucker Love tea here. So I am all warm and cozy and ready to film this video for you today. So yeah, so this video is going to be great for you if you are a HSP, highly sensitive person. If you are mostly introverted or you need a lot of time in your own energy to recharge, if you are an emotional authority generator like me, maybe also if you're a reflector and projector as well, but I don't know as much about those in human design. But definitely if you're an emotional authority generator, because we function a little bit differently to other generators and manifesting generators. And also if you've been going through a hard time, maybe you've been experiencing loss, grief, depression, anything like that. And also if you are self-employed and have your own business. So this video is mostly to do with your well-being, but I am going to be touching on things that overlap into your business, because ultimately if you are self-employed and you are a female entrepreneur, then your business is a massive part of your life, and so it's important to find ways to self-care through your business, with your business, so that your business is nourishing you and the way that you're operating in your business is nourishing for you and not depleting. And also the things that I'm going to be speaking about really do impact you on a physical level as well. It impacts your nervous system, your body, your relationship with pleasure. It impacts your relationship with your partner and your sex life as well, because everything, we function holistically, so everything is interconnected and interwoven, and impacts everything else. So these things can really help you to stay more in your empowered feminine energy and your feminine energy, rather than going into too much of your masculine forward-moving energy in your life and in your business. So my dad passed away in 2021, and I will truly be forever changed from that experience and the lead up to that. And I'm a different person to who I was before, and I really had to slow the F down in my work and in travel. And I really needed to take stock of the things that matter to me and the things that I value. And I really had to, it was a necessity for me to find a different way of living and being. And although I was kind of on this path to a more kind of peaceful existence and a more kind of feminine energy filled life, I was still very fast paced before. And I've really had to slow down, and I actually don't want to go back to how I was before. I don't want to go back to that fast-paced way of living and being. I've been adopting a more kind of minimalist approach to life, peaceful productivity and quiet marketing. You've probably heard of these terms. And I've been finding new ways of operating that really suit me and that really align with my design and who I am. So if you're like me, then it's highly likely that a lot of what the mainstream kind of business advice and gurus, the main things that you're told to do in life and in business in order to succeed probably feel utterly draining to you. So it probably causes you to feel turned off, to shut down, to shut off, and it probably doesn't sit right within you, within your body. And it can lead to burnout very quickly because you just don't operate in those ways, and that's okay. And the usual advice will probably cause you to feel like you're not doing enough, that what you're doing is not enough, that it's not good enough, that you're not enough, that it's not enough for you to be able to receive your desires or experience success in the ways that you want to. And I also want to say there's nothing wrong with hustling when the desire is there and the energy is there and you're in that flow. There's nothing wrong with the hustle, but it won't feel like hustle when you come into the spaces that I'm going to be speaking about. It will feel like the flow is carrying you, like your masculine energy is supporting you, and it won't feel like such hard work. I'm not saying that there's not going to be hard work involved, and I'm definitely not saying that you don't need a high level of devotion, or that you don't need to take action, or that you should never do anything that you don't want to have to do. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that it's the way you go about things, it is the energy that you're in, it is the pace that you allow for yourself that will make all the difference in how your journey feels and how success feels to you. You don't want success to mean burnout, to mean suffering, to mean pain. You want success to feel nourishing to you. And so there's some shifts that you may need to make in the way that you're seeing things, your perspective, the way you're operating, the things you're choosing to do, that will really help you to come into a space of nourishing success. I find that I get more done when I'm not trying so damn hard to do it all. And I really value my peace. I really value my free time. I value time by myself, and spaciousness and success. And I know that you can have both. So I'm going to share with you some tips now for how you can align with nourishing success, peaceful productivity, and a slower pace of living and being within your business, and a more feminine energy way of being within your business. So I do recommend listening to the little bits of information that I'm going to share about some of the tips. I'm not going to go into all of them, but you know, maybe someone in the comments can write down a list of all the tips that I share if you're just wanting to have a quick look. That's totally fine, but I do recommend like taking your time to listen, because you might receive some aha moments as I'm kind of going into more detail about some of the tips. So the first tip I have for you is to allow yourself to have contemplation time. And time, I call it contemplation time and incubation time. So we are bombarded with noise and information, and we have access to pretty much everybody on the planet on our little devices. And there is just so much information, and there's just so much noise out there, so many opinions, so much noise. And maybe I'm contributing to that by doing this video and being a complete hypocrite. But we need to be really responsible for ourselves here. And I feel like it is so important to allow yourself time for contemplation, because if you're not listening to a podcast, you might be watching a YouTube video, scrolling on Instagram, doing something in your business, talking to somebody, listening to music, watching TV, listening to the radio. There's never a time where there's just peace. And maybe there is for you, because if you are highly sensitive and you are introverted and all the things I've said, maybe you do allow yourself this time. But I'm just saying, if you haven't been, this is a reminder for you to let yourself have time for contemplation. Not reading a book, not doing anything else, just being and contemplating life, contemplating your ideas, and incubation time. So for me, when I gift myself some time, just quiet time, peaceful time, First of all, my thoughts are going crazy. Woo, there's loads of them. And they're rushing, and there's just like a cascade of thoughts and worries and da 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 da. And then eventually my mind starts to slow down because it runs out of thoughts to think, because I've thought all the thoughts, and they sometimes cycle back round. But eventually they start slowing down. And then it's like thoughts are few and far between. And I just allow that process to slow down. And then little things to contemplate will pop up, like important things or ideas or tasks that I haven't done yet, and inspiration for things. And then I allow myself to sit with those things and let them incubate in me. I don't rush in to act on them. So allowing yourself to sit with your ideas and let them incubate, sit with your thoughts, sit with your feelings, and just let it all fully landing in you before you act on it. So this is another tip, is to sit with things before taking action, and to let things take longer. So another tip is letting things take longer, being unattached to your timeline. So no rushing, not rushing and forcing and pushing and acting on urgency and shoulds and supposed tos, but really seeing how long something actually takes. So just letting it take as long as it takes. It will take as long as it takes. And not putting a time limit on it or a deadline if you can. Like sometimes if you're joint venturing or if you're delegating tasks, there might be time limits and deadlines on things, and I'll come to that later. But not putting such definite deadlines on things and such a high expectation of yourself with things before you've even tried to do it before. Just see how long something takes you this time, and allow things to take a bit longer, so you are not putting that pressure on yourself to do so much so quickly. So just slowing your timeline down and giving yourself longer. So maybe normally you would give yourself a day to do something or a few hours to do something. Give yourself 3 days, give yourself a week. And this sounds counterintuitive, I know, and many of the productivity strategy coaches out there will probably be tearing their hair out right now at me saying this. But if you are a highly sensitive person and an emotional authority generator or projector or reflector potentially, then in my experience, when I slow down, time slows down, and there is always more than enough time. When I'm running around like a headless chicken trying to do it all, it doesn't get done. And so, yeah, I have found that it's actually better to slow my timeline down, to gift myself more time than I need to do certain tasks, and to let it take as long as it takes. But I'll get to the bit if there is a deadline or a deep desire for a specific kind of structure to something. So the next piece is to take your sweet time with your deep inner work as well. The entrepreneurial journey is really about self-development, healing. It's really such a personal journey. It's not just about like marketing your course. It's about who you are becoming and who you need to be in order to do that. It's about your energy. It's about moving through your limiting beliefs, shifting patterns, working through trauma. It's about becoming the person you need to be to hold those things that you're calling into your life and that you're creating in your life, right? And so there's a lot of deep inner work going on. Sometimes not, sometimes it's more about moving forward, taking the action, but sometimes there are deep layers of inner work to be done. And your healing doesn't have to stop you from movement within your business, but you can allow yourself that time for healing, that time for the integration piece of the shifts that are happening for you. You don't have to rush it. And it's better to allow that time. And again, like a lot of this is about letting things take their time, not putting pressure, not forcing, not rushing to an end goal, especially before the readiness or the energy is there. Sometimes the shifts take a little time to integrate, and then the readiness comes. So there's another tip that I want to share with you, and this is something that's been really supporting me over the past couple of years because I was rebranding my business and recreating all my courses. I was doing most of the tasks myself, and this next tip is to create rituals and ceremony around mundane or difficult tasks or tasks that you're initially not really wanting to do. But deeper than this, there's a process that I now have naturally embodied, which is, I'm calling it finding acceptance. But say there's a task that you don't really want to have to do, but you know you're not going to delegate it, and you know in your heart that it is the thing, your next step, it is one of your next steps, and that you know that it aligns with your desires, and that if you did this thing, that it would move you toward your desires and your desires towards you. And so you know you need to do this thing, right? This task, but you don't really want to do it. It might not be your forte, it might not be your area of expertise, but not going to delegate it for whatever reason. So I found it really useful to come into a space of acceptance. So I get to this point where I'm like, okay, I'm not going to delegate this task. Really, my deepest desire is that this task is done. And so really, I do want to do it. And I'm going to do it, even if I don't want to, even if I don't desire to do it particularly. I will come into a space of acceptance. I'm going to do this task. So I say to myself, I'm going to do this task. And then I surrender it to higher powers, and I ask for guidance and help, and I sit with it and I wait on it, and then something magical starts to happen. The acceptance lands in me. I'm going to do this task. I am going to do this task. And then suddenly there's like a spark of desire, and it's like, okay, I'm going to do this task. And then there's this desire to do the task, and the motivation to do the task, and a readiness to do the task. And then the energy comes in to support me to do the task. And I also feel supported because I've surrendered it. And this also works if there's something that I don't know how to do. I do this thing where, so there's been some stuff like on my online course platform I didn't know how to do. I Googled it, still couldn't really understand it. Went to the help center, still couldn't really understand it. So I just sit with it. I just look at the screen, navigate around the screen. I just sit with it, sleep on it. And somehow, some way, a day or two later, it's often the next day, I just wake up and it's like I know how to do it. Like I could be grappling with like, oh, how do I do this? Looking it up, trying to figure it out. And then instead what I do is that I just look at the screen, I tell myself the task that I need to figure out, and I just surrender it and I trust it and I sleep on it, and then the next day suddenly it flows. And so I'm not trying to like push on through, I'm just allowing things to land and for the energy to come in to take me. But it's also this acceptance in me, and it's that acceptance that starts this energy brewing, and then the motivation is there and the energy is there and the desire is there, and then I actually quite enjoy doing the thing. But even if I don't enjoy it that much, I always feel good afterwards that I've done the thing, and it's really rewarding and it feels so worth it to me. Sorry, I'm just looking at my notes on my laptop down here. Yes, so I've said contemplation time, incubation time, taking your time, sitting with it before acting on it, waiting for the energy to carry you rather than pushing and forcing it, letting things take longer, being unattached to your timeline, finding that acceptance and flow, honoring your rhythm. So this is the next tip, honoring your rhythm, like your time of day, your cycle, your menstrual cycle, if you still have one, and the seasons and the moon phases. I find it so useful utilizing the cycles of nature, my own cycles and rhythms. And for me right now in the winter time, my most energized time of day is sort of late morning, early afternoon. That's when I've got the most energy to work on my business. And I'm really honoring that. I'm really honoring my pace and my times and my rhythms and my cycles, and I'm utilizing those things like the lunar cycle, my menstrual cycle. There's definitely times in the month where I'm more outward, more social, more vibrant, times where I'm more inward. There's times where I'm feeling literally every single month leading up to my period, when I'm in the luteal phase, like the premenstrual phase, like the first half of that, I go into organization mode, and I love to ride this wave. It's like this surge of like organization where I'm wanting to plan things, schedule things, organize things, get like declutter, get crystal clear on things, reflect on things. And it's like this organization mode just kicks in. And I love utilizing that time, because if I try and do that when I'm in my ovulation phase, where I'm this like social, more social than normal, more not necessarily social, but more outwards and more creative, and I'm more like in my creative, juicy space, it doesn't work if I try and force myself then to be like Miss Organizational, organization queen. That happens like later in my cycle, and I've learned this rhythm and this cyclical nature that I have that I can utilize for my business. I recommend the book Woman Code by Elisa Vitti, and her app Flow, Flow Living, I think it's called now. It's really, really good for syncing your life and your business with your cycle. If you don't have a menstrual cycle anymore and you are post-menopause, you can still utilize the cycles of nature, the lunar cycle, the rhythms of nature, like the daily cycle, and the cycle of the seasons as well. Okay, the next one is very, very tricky indeed, easier said than done, but it's about letting go of perfectionism whilst maintaining standards and staying devoted. So you want to be letting go of the negative judgments and the stories, because perfectionism is all about judgment and telling yourself stories, and really getting to the roots of that. But you also do want to maintain and have a certain standard of work in the world that you feel good about. And so it's really riding that wave between going into perfectionism over progress and going into progress over perfectionism. I really value staying devoted to something, and I really value having a certain standard that matters to me personally, but I don't want to go into stopping myself from moving because of perfectionism. It can cause you to go into total paralysis. It can cause you to procrastinate. It can cause you to just feel awful, and it's just not worth it. And so it's likely something that you'll probably have to work with somebody on, because it can be really deep rooted, and yeah, it's difficult to kind of work with yourself and work around it all on your own all the time. I don't recommend that. So another tip is to trust in a higher power that is supporting you. I don't know what your beliefs are, but I personally have found trusting in a higher power and trusting that that higher power is supporting me. It's always supporting me. It's on my side, and that it's not all on me. It's not all on me. So I can surrender to that higher power when I've not got the answers, and when I'm up in my head trying to figure it all out, I surrender it to that higher power, and I can co-create with this higher power, and I trust this higher power to be wanting what I want, to be on my side, to be supportive. It's not testing me, it's not teaching me a lesson in a horrible way. It is supporting me, and it is guiding me, and it is here for me. That's how I choose to see my higher power in my life. The higher power of the universe, God, source, my higher self, all the beings of love and light that are supporting me. I believe that they are not trying to teach me a lesson, and that they are really rooting for me. And when I don't have all the answers, when I surrender, it gives me this spaciousness within me, and then the answers come, the inspiration comes, letting go of that stress response and that holding tight, tensing feeling. When you surrender, everything flows better when you're in that space of surrender. It's not always easy to do. Another tip is to work on your codependency. So your codependency is where you are taking on the responsibility of things that are not your responsibility, taking on the responsibility of the emotions and the reactions of others, taking on the responsibility of things that are not your responsibility. And because of that, you can go into a space of people pleasing, pandering, catering to others. You are doing things out of obligation rather than your true, genuine desire. It's an energy leak and an energy drain on your system. And you want to be seeing other people in their power, seeing others as capable, not taking it all on and trying to please everybody or specific people, or going into that space of codependency. This is quite tricky, especially for women, and that is also something I recommend having support with, because it's not easy to even recognize sometimes that you're in a space of codependency. It can be so deeply ingrained in you, especially if you grew up and when you were a child, you experienced certain traumas that caused this dynamic to play out, where you had to use codependency as a survival mechanism, a coping strategy. Like, well done for doing that. Well done, little you, for doing that. But it's something that you will likely need to work on again and again in your life so that you don't dip back into that. It's very easy to slip into codependency. And just as women in general, we are very much taught to be codependent. And so it is very ingrained in us. And so, yeah, it's important to be working on that, to be checking in with yourself, to be listening to what your truth is, what your needs are, what your values are, what your desires are, what you need in that moment, and to really honor yourself. And this isn't about becoming selfish or anything like that. This is really important for you so that you have the energy and the capacity and can be who you need to be in the world, to feel good in your work in the world and in your life. And this leads me on to the next one, which is to not take on the weight of the world on your shoulders. This is something I do. I am prone to doing. I take on the weight of the world. I have the weight of the world on my shoulders. I care so much about things and I take things very seriously. And I have to remind myself to trust in a positive future, which is very, very difficult when we are bombarded. Again, this is like being responsible for the information that you're receiving, and knowing when to turn your phone off, to shut the laptop down, to just be with yourself, come back home to yourself. Because I have found I need to constantly remind myself to trust in a positive future, trust in a positive outcome for humanity and our planet, our world, and trust that others are capable and powerful as well. It's not all on you, and you can, just for today, just take the weight of the world off your shoulders, just set it down just for today, give yourself a break, take that weight off and just trust in a positive future. Choose to trust in a positive future, and just for that day you can take the weight of the world off your shoulders, and it's going to free up so much energy, and you can utilize that energy for other things in your life, rather than staying in a space of fear and worry or even panic or dread about the future, and taking on the responsibility of everybody and everything on this planet. It is too much for any human being to take that all on. You have permission to let that go just for today, so that you can focus on what you need in this moment, and so that you can utilize your energy in ways that are actually going to be benefiting the world. The next piece is to always have a mindset of curiosity, experimentation, exploration, and adventure within your business. Like, there's no such thing as mistakes or failures when you're in this space of play and curiosity and experimentation. I have to remind myself of this one as well. Even though I am a total pleasure-seeking goddess, I still can sometimes get weighed down and take things too seriously and put so much pressure on myself that it has to look a certain way or be a certain way or focus too much on like the outcome or the result or the goal, when actually I want to really enjoy the journey. I want to play. I want to be in my childlike curiosity and experiment and explore and test things out. And I am a 3-5 profile in human design, which is trial and error, so that's probably why. So but yeah, even if you're not, if you can come into that space of curiosity rather than fear, rather than pressure, and just that openness. Curiosity allows for an openness and a more playful vibe. So okay, I mentioned about earlier letting things take as long as they take and not putting harsh deadlines on things and time limits before you've tried a thing, and to just be more spacious with your timeline with things. Let things contemplate on things, let things land in you, sit with them, let it incubate, sit with it before you act on it. This is all great if you're emotional authority. But let's just say you have a deep desire and you're devoted to something and you really want it to happen. So for instance, I have really aligned with my deep desire to upload at least 2 videos a week. So I'm doing an education information video on a Friday, uploading it on a Friday, and then doing my yoni breathing practice, guided practices on a Sunday. And I've been wanting to do this for years, and I have a real issue with consistency, and I'm choosing not to even focus on that word. I've come into this space of devoting to that, saying yes to that desire. Like, I want to upload 2 videos a week, 1 on a Friday, 1 on a Sunday. That's my baseline, bare minimum of what I'm available for, and I've devoted to it. And I was really fearful that I wouldn't be able to follow through with that I would let myself down or let you down. It's really my own made up thing anyway, but I was thinking, I don't even know if I'm capable of doing this, but it turns out that I've devoted to it and I'm just trusting that it will flow. And it's like I have a certain flow that's sort of starting to take shape with it, where like ideas and inspiration seem to be coming to me on like a Sunday morning, and then I'm sitting down and planning out my video on a Monday. And there's just this natural flow because I've devoted. So if you have a deadline or a time limit on something, if you're working with someone else, or if you have your own time limit on something, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but the mindset that you're in around it, rather than panicking and worrying and pushing and forcing, again, it's about kind of letting go and letting it flow. Like, have that devotion and have that trust and keep taking the baby steps and keep letting it land in you and letting the energy take you each step of the way, rather than acting on the sense of urgency. Whenever there's that sense of urgency, slow down. And it's counterintuitive, but when you slow down, time will slow down. There will always be more than enough time. And it's just really weird how the universe works, because maybe they'll bring someone into your life that's going to be able to help you with that, and you get it done a gazillion times quicker than you thought you ever would. Or maybe you just suddenly know how to do the thing when you've been grappling with it, when you were trying to push and force it, and just now you relax, you suddenly know, you have a knowing. Maybe the task will take half the time you thought, or maybe it will take longer, but in that process, you've learned something you really needed to learn, and you've had like realizations and shifts because of it. You can really trust in the timing of things. And if there is a deadline, you can trust that you will meet the deadline, that you will, that it will flow within that container that you've set. So although I am all about letting it take as long as it takes, you can do that within a container. And just make sure that when you are talking about deadlines with, people that you're hiring or delegating to, or your team or whatever, if there are deadlines, make sure you gift yourself enough time, or longer than you think you're going to need for that deadline. That is a tip. Hello, this is Editing Jackie from the future, and I realised I didn't finish sharing with you all my notes about this tip. So I wanted to jump in here and just finish doing that before I carry on. So with deadlines, it's kind of twofold. Sometimes you're going to have a deadline, like say if you're writing a book or you're working with other people who have set the deadlines for you. Sometimes you're going to need to make sure that you plan and schedule and break everything down and be really strategic about your deadlines so that you can meet your deadlines. And other times, if it's you kind of creating the deadline with your team or when you're delegating something or with yourself, then you can be a bit more relaxed about it. And if you realize you're not going to be able to meet the deadline, even if someone else has set it for you, the best thing you can do is have communication with anybody else involved with this piece of work that you're working on, and also communication with yourself. You want to be in self-reflection and re-evaluation. So if it's coming up to the deadline and you realise you're not going to be able to meet it, then it's a case of moving the deadline, maybe a few days or a few weeks or however long you think you're going to need, or just maybe putting a loose deadline in place and working towards it and seeing how long it takes you. Because normally when you've devoted to a deadline or a loose deadline, you're more than likely going to finish the task around that time, within a few weeks of it. It's about not being hard on yourself, and remembering that you're setting these deadlines for yourself, if it is ones that you're setting because you're an entrepreneur. And when someone else sets a deadline for you, they don't know your flow, so there's only so much you can do. And so it's kind of both and. There's the way of going about it where you really surrender and you trust that you'll meet the deadline, and you put things in place so that you can meet the deadline, strategies, systems, and break down your tasks and make sure that you have more than enough time. And obviously initially when you are working with other people, be in communication with them. So if they do offer you a deadline that you think is going to be impossible, express that and communicate that and see what can be done about it. But if it's a deadline just for yourself and your team that you've made up, then it's a case of just, if you're not going to meet that deadline, to reevaluate and self-reflect. Why didn't you meet the deadline? Were you expecting too much of yourself, taking on too much too soon? Were you putting pressure on yourself? Were you going into your sabotages, your self-sabotage? Does there need to be some inner work around it? Or was it a case of you weren't implementing certain things because you weren't managing your time in the best way? Like, just figure out what the reasons were, and so next time you can improve, or next time you can give yourself longer for that deadline. So it's not about kicking yourself or feeling like a failure or putting so much pressure on yourself. It's about constant communication, open, honest, authentic communication with others and with yourself, and just being reflective and being kind and compassionate with yourself as well. And this may be completely not what other people will tell you to do, but I'm talking to you if you're in a space of sensitivity right now, if you're in a space where you don't have as much capacity as you have done in the past, or as much capacity as you see other people having, that doesn't make you wrong, it doesn't make you broken, it doesn't mean you can't succeed in your own way. It doesn't mean that you can't utilize that within your business, because the way that you're going to be going about your business and your life is going to be different from other people, and that's okay. Like, your way is perfect for you, and you're allowed to take your time to find that flow for yourself. And it might change. There may be times where you're flying high again, super speed, quantum leaping, in the hustle, but in a good way. And that's fine too. But if you're in a space of sensitivity and you're wanting a slower pace right now, that's why I'm sharing these tips. The next tip is working on your self-sabotage with support. This is something that I am doing at the moment. I have an amazing coach called Laura Lucas. She's helping me with a process called Fears to Flow, and it is like CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, like on steroids. It's really deep work and it's really core shifting. And I honestly know that I couldn't get there on my own. I tried and it wasn't happening for me. I was really struggling with coming back onto social media. I had a lot of deep and dark and difficult limiting beliefs that were like core things causing me to go into this existential place that would then paralyze me and stop me from doing the things I want to actually do. And so, yeah, working on your self-sabotage. There is a woman who I can recommend. She's got the Success Saboteurs. I haven't worked with her privately or in any of her groups, but I really like her. Natasha Bray, she does the Success Saboteurs, and I really like her work as well. So Laura Lucas and Natasha Bray, great coaches and information to help you with your self-sabotage, because it's something I think we all have. I think Natasha's saboteurs are the imposter, the hustler, the overgiver, the outcast. And with what I teach about the masculine and feminine dynamic, that it fits into the wounded masculine and the wounded feminine and how these play out in your business and your life. So it's really important to be working on those. And I really feel like going deep with that is a really good idea, because you want to be shifting them at the core, not just on a surface level. So yeah, investing in support, but not just support for like your mindset, your business or whatever, but support in all areas of your life, like investing in your self-care, your self-maintenance, investing in your relationship, investing in your pleasure, your sex life. There's not just business coaches out there. There's all sorts of things you can invest in for all the areas of your life, and the things that matter to you most. You don't want to be leaving them on the back burner just because you have a business. Okay, now just a few practical kind of self-care tips, that the more normal self-care tips that you might come across. These are ones that I find most beneficial in my life. You want to be regulating your dopamine. So like I said, coming off the devices, giving yourself quiet time, contemplation time, like I said, but also I really love having immersive walks in nature and forest bathing or woodland bathing, whatever you want to call it. So to me, an immersive walk is about really tuning into my senses and immersing myself in my environment. So I love to walk in nature and really take it all in and let my sensuality experience my environment on all the levels and in all the ways I can. That's an immersive walk. It's very meditative, it's very mindful. And I love to, like, trees are amazing. Really, they are. Plants, any plants, but trees especially are amazing. Not only do they give us oxygen, like pure oxygen, they give off negative ions, and obviously all of our devices and everything have the positive ions, and that can really affect our nervous system, and it can cause free radicals in our cells, which cause mutated cells, which cause disease. And so being around trees and being in nature is so good for you. And they also give off a kind of nectar, which we breathe in, which is really, really beneficial for us. And so connecting with trees, forest bathing, tree bathing, woodland bathing is literally just about sitting around trees, sitting or lying down or walking around trees. I love to put my hands on trees. I love to hug trees as well. I am a self-confessed tree hugger and proud of it. Trees are so good for you. So definitely get out in nature. But if you're not somewhere where you can easily get to nature, bring nature into your home. Get plants that can purify the air, give off oxygen, meditate with your plants. If you have a balcony, get plants on your balcony, grow herbs, anything you can do to connect with nature. And if obviously you have a garden, you can sit in your garden, you can put your hands on the plants, you can meditate with the plants, feel the energy of the plants. It's a little bit too cold for me to do earthing right now with my feet. I don't like taking my shoes and socks off in the winter and stepping on the damp, cold ground or icy ground. Personally, that's just not something I like to do, but I do like to use my hands instead. And when it's a bit warmer, I like to do the earthing and grounding thing too. So yeah, get plants in your life, eat plants, consume plants as well, consume the rainbow, nourish your body with plants. As you know, I live cruelty-free and vegan. I do not choose to live in a paradigm where you need to harm animals to receive all the nutrients you need. I choose not to believe in that world. So it's just not something I experience. I receive all my nutrients from plants and I eat the rainbow and consume the rainbow. And I recommend doing the same, even if you're not vegan or plant-based or cruelty-free. I still recommend getting a whole variety of whole plant foods into your body, into your system. We thrive off of the medicine, the phytochemicals that are in plants. It's like Mother Earth was so clever because she put the medicine in her plants and we get to eat them. We live in harmony and synergy with plants. They benefit us. So yeah, I really highly recommend eating the rainbow. So the next piece is, if we're regulating dopamine, one of the great ways to do this is physical touch. So this may not be your love language if you've heard of the 5 love languages, but physical touch. So either touching yourself, self-massage, self-touch, self-pleasure, and also touch with your partner or with friends, cuddles, and even touch with people you kind of know, such as going for a massage, getting your hair done with your hairdresser, just having tactile touch. It really helps release oxytocin and it can help regulate your dopamine, it can boost your serotonin, and yeah, it just gives you those peaceful, happy vibes, and helps your nervous system to stay calm and relaxed, and that's what we want. We don't want to be going into our stress responses. We don't want to be activating the sympathetic nervous system and going into our fight, flight, freeze, fawn responses. We want to be in rest and digest more of the time. I also really rate meditation. Even just 3 minutes of meditation can be so beneficial. And my immersive walks in nature and my forest bathing to me are a form of meditation. When I do yoga, that's a form of meditation to me. But there are specific meditations as well that I like to do. I like to do ones just by myself without any input. I also like various guided meditations. I also love to yoni breathe and bring yoni breathing practice into my meditation and breath work. So you can find your own ways of meditation. There can be active meditation or still meditation, a bit of both. It will give you that space between your thoughts and help you to cope with life better. And for me, it gives me a more optimistic outlook on life. When I meditate, I notice a difference if I haven't been meditating or doing meditative practices, mindful practices. I find that then I can start slipping into that more negative thinking, stinking thinking, and that's what we want to avoid. And the last thing I'm going to say is about stacking certain tools and techniques and practices, and also immersing yourself into one. So I like to do a bit of both. Like I said, if I go for one of my immersive walks in nature, forest bathing walks, I will yoni breathe as well. And to me, that is meditation, yoni breathing. So it's breath work, mindfulness, exercise, nature. So it's lots of different things in one. And I call that stacking your self-care. But it's also important sometimes to just hone in on one thing and not do all the things and just let yourself immerse in the one thing. And so I love to play with stacking and immersing myself in one thing. And I just got some questions for you just to end this video, this very long video. and so that you can start to really integrate this and start thinking about this for yourself and what's going to help you and what's going to serve you, the bits you want to take and leave. So the first question, if you want to just close your eyes and feel into your body for a moment, just feel into your heart space, feel into your yoni, just come into a calmer space. What brings you peace, joy, and pleasure? What supports your mental and emotional health? If you're not doing fill in the blank, you notice you start spiraling in a negative way. Fill in that blank. So if you're not doing fill in the blank, you notice you start to spiral in a negative way. And the last one is, if you make sure to do this one thing, fill in the blank, you notice you feel more optimistic and able to cope with your life and business. So if you make sure to do this one thing, you can fill in the blank on that. You notice you feel more optimistic and able to cope in life and your business. Okay, thank you so much for watching this video. If you got to the end, thank you. Thank you for slowing down and taking the time to listen to this. Even if you've listened to me on double time or time and a half, thank you for getting to the end. Really appreciate that. It would be so amazing if you could give this video a thumbs up, if you could subscribe to my channel and comment. It really helps me because my channel has been demonetized because I was inactive for so long. So the algorithm doesn't really pick up my videos anymore. And yeah, obviously I want to help as many people, as many women as possible. So if you could hit the like button, subscribe and leave a comment, that would be amazing. No worries if not. Thank you for watching this video, no matter what, whether you comment, subscribe or comment, no, or like it. I hope you have an amazing day. And as always, remember to keep it juicy. Woohoo! Bye.